our old promotions director, Brian Connigan, his mother was in Building 7, and she worked in Building 7, which did later collapse that night. It was one of the ones that came down afterwards, just from the other two falling. She was fine. You felt horrible because he can't get a hold of anybody. Phone lines are jammed. His family, his mom is up there, and just all the chaos that's going on, and he's in Pittsburgh and nothing he can do.
And I remember sitting in a hotel with a bunch of players, and everybody is trying to call New York and trying to, we're all sitting there, anybody who had ties to New York, and there was, there was me, Edgar Martinez, John Halama, 2 or 3 other players that had ties to, close ties to New York, and we were all trying to make sure that everybody was okay.
The other thing that happened to me on that particular day is I got a phone call from a friend of mine in Florida who said, "Did you hear what happened to Marty?" Marty's a golf buddy of mine, and Marty put his hand on the doorknob of the South Tower to go in for his 9 o'clock appointment when the plane hit the South Tower. And he remembered a big bang and people screaming. And a lot of things he blocked out of his memory. I called him and talked to him that night. He was obviously incredibly emotional, and he was also, he was drunk. He had been drinking most of the day to get the memory out of his head. And as I later saw him the next week, he went in to tell me about the dynamics of what happened when that plane hit the South Tower. He ended up carrying a woman over his shoulder over 2 miles and didn't remember most of it. 2 miles after that happened. There were people diving out of the building, landing near him. Most of the stuff he'd blocked out, but after a week or so, if you got him in the right frame of mind, he'd actually talk about it. But it was one of those things that stays with you forever.
I've spoken to many people since then and interviewed people that were, first responders and people who were relatives of people who had died, and, because a lot of people were on the plane that was heading back to California that were in the Bay Area. So we heard from a lot of people who knew someone that was on that plane.
One guy that was my sister's boyfriend before she got married was, when she was younger, her boyfriend. He had actually come out with her to visit me in San Francisco when I lived out there, and Gary, nice guy, got on the job as a fireman, and was one of the firemen that died. He was probably the guy I knew the most. My sister is in the insurance business. She was really affected by it because she knew a lot of people. Part of her unit in the insurance company she worked for was wiped out.
Again, working in a local market close to one of the attacks, somebody knew somebody who was involved, whether they were helping in the rescue efforts. I had friends of mine that were in the fire department in Baltimore who went to New York to assist in the disaster relief and to try to, in the rescue efforts as they were still being termed at the time. I had friends who worked down around the Pentagon. And then I found out that a very, very good friend of mine who was a Baltimore County police officer lost his brother on Flight 93 and is largely credited, based on some of the evidence, as being one of the guys who rushed the cockpit and one of the leaders in that effort. I've known Kenny Nackey for a long time, but our relationship really took a cementing after that, and we've been close ever since.